The evening sky over New York shimmered with deep shades of blue and purple, as if the last rays of the setting sun were dissolving into the ocean of twilight. Through the wide panoramic windows of Harper's luxurious apartment, the light of neon signs and the flickering lights of city streets softly penetrated. This subtle, almost ethereal light created a sense that time was slowing down, allowing each moment to unfold in all its multifaceted beauty. Harper sat in the corner of her cozy living room, hugging a cup of hot coffee, inhaling the aroma of freshly ground beans, and feeling the warmth emanating from the antique ceramic teapot on the table. Her gaze, filled with quiet contemplation, slid over the shadows formed by the dim light. Every little detail in this quiet corner, from the soft rustle of the curtains to the barely audible hum of street traffic, seemed imbued with hidden meaning. It seemed as if the universe itself was whispering about impending changes, making her heart beat faster. That evening, Harper felt a strange duality. On the one hand, the peace and comfort of her personal space. On the other, the irresistible attraction of the night city, full of mysteries and promises. Her thoughts wandered between memories of long-gone days and uncertain hopes for the future. In every reflection of the city lights, she sought answers to questions that had long remained unanswered, seeking her truth in this chaos. Beyond her solitude, the sounds of nighttime New York could be heard. The soft rustle of leaves, the distant hum of cars, the muffled echo of footsteps on cobblestone streets. These sounds, merging into a single symphony of the city, pierced her consciousness, as if reminding her that life was bustling beyond the walls of her quiet abode. Harper involuntarily felt how her own breath synchronized with the rhythm of the metropolis, and her thoughts, as an integral part of a huge, pulsating organism. Within herself, she caught the slightest changes, a slight tingling of anxiety, a barely perceptible confusion, and at the same time a deep sense of anticipation, as if on the threshold of a new, unexplored world. Every moment was filled with meaning. Every quiet movement became a reflection of her inner struggle between the past and the future, between the comfort of the familiar and the alluring call of change. In such moments, Harper wondered about the subtlety of human feelings, about how one evening could turn the familiar world upside down and open up an infinite space of possibilities before her. As if obeying an invisible force, Harper's gaze involuntarily stopped on an old, barely discernible portrait hanging on the wall. The face captured in it radiated a mixture of wisdom and sadness, as a reminder of those who once sought answers in the darkness of the night. This picture, as quiet and mysterious as life itself, seemed to send her a sign. The time of change had already come, and fate had prepared unexpected turns. At this hour, when the city began to come alive anew, Harper felt a quiet determination growing in her chest. She understood, behind every corner, behind every reflection in the high-rise glass, there was a story that could change everything. And although the fear of the unknown slightly weighed on her heart, it intertwined with the thrill of anticipation of a new beginning, a new stage in which every step would be important. Thus began her evening, quiet, filled with anticipation and the subtle, almost imperceptible energy of change. At this moment, New York and her soul became one, ready to accept what fate had in store, and every subsequent breath promised to reveal a new facet of life, so exciting and unpredictable. The dark silence of nighttime New York was broken only by barely audible sounds coming from the depths of the corridor. Harper sat by the window, watching how the neon glow of the city softly shimmered through the prism of raindrops, when her attention was drawn to a strange, almost indistinguishable noise coming from the neighboring room. In her soul, a feeling awoke that behind the familiar routine lay something more, a secret ready to burst out. Her heart began to beat faster, and as if guided by intuition, Harper rose from the cozy sofa. Her bare feet, accustomed to the familiar soft carpet, did not hurry. Every step was dictated by caution and inner foreboding. She approached the corridor, where the soft light of street lamps penetrated through the slightly open door of Grayson's room. This dim light, seeping out from under the door, seemed like a silent invitation to explore the forbidden zone, where perhaps a hidden part of his soul lay. Harper froze on the threshold, feeling the tension in the air. A slight creak, a barely audible rustle of fabric, a soft sigh. All these sounds formed a fragile symphony of mystery, where every movement had meaning. At the moment when she decided to take a step forward, her mind struggled with an unknown fear. Fear of what she might discover and, at the same time, a thirst to understand what her neighbor was hiding. Carefully pushing the door open, Harper entered the dimly lit room, where the silence was broken only by the flickering light of a laptop screen. Before her sat Grayson, lost in his thoughts, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the screen, which revealed all the shades of his inner turmoil. He sat on the edge of the bed, as if lost between worlds, the one that demanded logic and the one that dictated intuition. His hands trembled and his gaze wandered, trying to find support in this momentary silent drama. Harper did not rush with questions. She only watched attentively. In every nervous movement, in every uncertain sigh, the complexity of feelings that he tried to hide was read. The silence, broken only by soft breathing, seemed filled with secret messages. Messages about struggle, about inner instability, and perhaps about long-forgotten dreams. She understood that this moment was not just a chance encounter, but the beginning of something new, vague, yet inevitable. "Grayson," she said softly, not demanding an immediate answer, but giving him the opportunity to open his soul himself. In her voice there was tenderness and determination, as if she wanted not just to learn the truth, but to help him accept it. His eyes, full of unspoken words and vulnerability, met her gaze, and in this silent dialogue between them, a whole universe of emotions unfolded. He, as if caught in the trap of his own fears, slowly lowered his gaze, trying to find the words that were lacking. Seconds passed, filled with tension and tender closeness, when Harper took another step forward. Her presence, calm and non-judgmental, eased the atmosphere, making it clear that she was there not to criticize, but to support. Inside her, questions boiled. What exactly was causing his anxiety? What secrets lay behind his silent sighs? She saw how his hands involuntarily clenched into fists and understood. Behind every movement of his lay a struggle with himself, a struggle between fear and the desire to be understood. The soft warmth of her words, barely sounding in this room, became a quiet anchor for Grayson. In response to her gentle voice, his voice trembled, as did he, but soon a soft note of confession sounded in it. An inexpressible sadness and embarrassment, intertwined with hope for change, were reflected in his gaze when he whispered, barely audibly, "I didn't know how to stop." These words, short and almost inaudible, awoke in Harper a feeling of compassion and understanding, for she herself knew how hard it could be to find one's way in the labyrinth of doubts and fears. At that moment, when the corridor, illuminated by the light of the night city, framed their figures, Harper understood that their meeting was not a coincidence. It was a sign, foreshadowing changes that would soon turn the familiar world upside down. The shadow of mystery that hung in the room slowly gave way to the beginning of a frank conversation. A conversation in which every word had meaning and every pause weight. And although the question of what exactly brought Grayson to this moment remained unanswered, Harper already felt that it was here and now that their mutual journey into the world of intimate experiences began, where the truth is revealed not immediately, but gradually through the prism of pain, regret, and at the same time, hope for a better future. In the dim twilight of the room, where only the soft light of the night city penetrated through the curtains, time seemed to stop. Harper and Grayson sat on the edge of the bed. Between them hung an invisible veil woven from unspoken words and hidden feelings. The silence, which had previously seemed hostile, now became an arena for their inner dialogue. A conversation in which words shimmered like reflections on water, and every glance spoke of what remained unexpressed. "Grayson," Harper began, her voice soft and confident, "I see that something is troubling you. Tell me what you feel now." He looked down, avoiding direct eye contact, and for a moment the world around narrowed to a single sound, his own rapid breathing. There was weakness in his voice, intertwined with deep regret. I don't know how to explain. I feel like every thought gets stuck, as if I'm lost between duty and desire." His words were like a soft whisper, hard to catch, but they reflected an ocean of doubts. Harper slowly reached out, touching him, as if through this gentle gesture she wanted to convey all her support and understanding. "Sometimes silence speaks louder than any words," she said softly, her gaze remaining warm despite the tension of the moment. "It's important for you to know. You are not alone, and I am ready to listen, even if it is difficult for you to express everything." In response, his eyes met hers, in which sincerity and tenderness were reflected. In this gaze, Grayson felt how the ice that enveloped his heart began to slowly melt. He took a deep breath, and his voice became a little more confident. "It seems to me that I have always been between two fires: duty to those who expect loyalty from me, and the desire to understand what I really want. Every night, when I am left alone with my thoughts, turns into a battle with fears, with the unknown shadow of regret and guilt." His confession sounded like a confession, the sincerity of which was so frightening that it was hard to believe even himself. Harper nodded, as if confirming that her soul had long been filled with an understanding of this struggle. Her voice became a little quieter, but every word penetrated straight to the heart. "You are brave, Grayson, that you allow yourself to feel. These contradictions are not a weakness, but a part of your essence. Sometimes we seek solace in silence because it is easier to accept all our fears and hopes in it than in the chaos of words." In the room, a depth of silent understanding reigned again, where every word, every pause became a bridge between two souls. At this moment, something more than just a conversation arose between them. It was a quiet, yet powerful exchange of intimate thoughts, where Harper became a guide for Grayson in the labyrinth of his own feelings. He realized that this dialogue was not an attempt to find an instant solution, but an opportunity to accept his duality, to find a balance between duty and sincere desire to live without betraying himself. "Sometimes," Harper continued, "we need to give ourselves time to understand what we really need. Perhaps the answers are not always found in words, but in how we learn to listen to ourselves and each other. Let this moment be the beginning of your journey to yourself." These words, like a soft call, resonated in Grayson, making him feel how his heart, recently gripped by fear, began to beat in unison with hope. Between them reigned a tender vulnerability, where every gesture and every word took on new meaning. The dialogue of silence and hidden desires continued, promising that on this tangled path, even the most painful feelings could become the key to finding true freedom and understanding oneself. The next day, when the morning light penetrated through the thick curtains, Grayson awoke with the feeling that his soul was being torn apart. In the silence of the empty room, the echoes of yesterday's conversations came alive again, turning into an unbearable combination of duty and desire. His thoughts carried him far beyond familiar boundaries, forcing him to involuntarily remember Sierra, the woman who, for many years, had been his anchor, his support in this stormy ocean of life. But last night with Harper left an indelible mark on him. She awakened not only his secret dreams, but also the painful realization of his duality. Grayson's inner voice sounded like the strings of a violin, each chord of which conveyed deep anxiety and confusion. On the one hand, obligations to Sierra seemed unshakable, filled with memories of care, warmth, and shared plans for the future. On the other hand, Harper, with her gentle yet insistent presence, opened the door to a world of vague yet alluring desires. This struggle gave him no peace. Every morning he woke up as if torn between the obligation to be faithful and the desire to experience something new and unexplored. Grayson remembered how Sierra looked at him with her kind eyes full of trust and tenderness, and how her words always supported him, giving a sense of stability. But in his memory appeared the image of Harper, her penetrating gaze, confident voice, quiet support, which allowed him to open the veil over those fears that he had hidden for so long. His heart beat rapidly, as if trying to decide which side of his soul should prevail. It was like a storm where every gust of wind was a new feeling, and every flash of lightning was the realization that the choice between duty and temptation could change his entire life. Sitting in a small cafe not far from his apartment, Grayson tried to calm this inner storm. He thoughtfully sipped bitter coffee, watching how raindrops, like invisible tears, slid down the glass. Each drop seemed to him a symbol of his doubts, innocent yet full of suffering like his feelings. He closed his eyes and tried to imagine the conversation that could change everything. A conversation with Sierra in which he would reveal his pain and uncertainty, or conversely, a conversation with Harper, which could become the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Deep down, Grayson understood that what tormented him was not so much the fear of change as the fear of losing part of himself, the part that could be sincere and free. His consciousness was divided into two halves. One yearned for stability, safety, and fidelity. The other, for courage, for the search for new sensations that could awaken him to life. This inner conflict was so strong that every minute seemed like an eternity, and every second was a choice between two opposite worlds. Thus, in this tumultuous world of contradictory feelings, Grayson remained alone with his fears and hopes. He felt how his soul cried out from the fact that it had to choose between what once seemed true and what beckoned with novelty and promised unknown freedom. And while outside the window the raindrops continued to fall, as if confirming the rhythm of his inner turmoil, he understood. Ahead of him lay a difficult path, a path on which every step would be a test of his faith in himself and in the fact that true love is not only duty, but also the ability to be sincere with oneself. Harper knew that the time had come to break down old barriers and give Grayson a chance to look deep into his own soul. On the eve of the decisive evening, she chose every detail with special care, from the scent of perfume to the outfit, able not only to emphasize her grace, but also to convey all her inner strength. She chose a red-fitted dress, as if created to ignite hearts, and high heels added confidence and elegance to her walk. Every touch of the fabric, every glance in the mirror filled her with determination. Tonight she would be the one to lead Grayson to the realization of his true nature. The evening met them with the soft light of candles and the muted chords of jazz, flowing in the cozy corner of a new Italian restaurant in Manhattan. The atmosphere of the establishment, permeated with intimacy, seemed like a reflection of a world where every word, every movement acquired special meaning. Harper and Grayson sat at a table in the dim light, and time, it seemed, stood still, giving way only to their gazes and silent confessions. Grayson, previously gripped by inner struggle, now looked at Harper with a hint of embarrassed surprise and subtle hope. His soul was torn between duty to Sierra and the irresistible desire to experience something new and inexplicable. His hands, slightly trembling, touched the table, as if seeking support in a world where everything around seemed shaky and changeable. At that moment, he felt how every word of Harper, every movement of hers, carrying calmness and confidence, penetrated into the most hidden corners of his heart. "Grayson," Harper began softly, her voice sounding like a soft call to change. "Sometimes in our life comes a moment when fear retreats before sincerity, and the past gives way to a new chapter. Have you ever felt that something inside you is ripening, ready to break out, despite all doubts?" Her question, said almost in a whisper, became a kind of key, opening the locked door of his soul. Grayson closed his eyes, trying to catch the entire palette of feelings that he had hidden from the world for so long. His inner voice sounded like the echo of a long-forgotten promise of freedom, and at that moment, he realized that it was time to stop living between two worlds. During dinner, a subtle, almost imperceptible dance of glances and gestures unfolded between them. Every touch, a light touch of the hand, an exchange of smiles, acquired the meaning of a whole story, told without extra words. The light of candles cast intricate shadows, creating an atmosphere where time was measured not by hours but by moments of revelation. Harper skillfully guided the conversation, gently leading Grayson out of the labyrinth of his fears, offering him the opportunity to be himself without fear of condemnation and regret. When dessert was served and the jazz gave way to the barely audible melody of a saxophone, the tension reached its climax. Harper, feeling the magnetic attraction growing between them, leaned gently toward Grayson, and her gaze, filled with tenderness and determination, met his tired yet eager for change eyes. At that moment, all external noises subsided, giving way only to the beating of their hearts. "Allow yourself this moment," she whispered, and her words became a soft manifesto of freedom. Sometimes the only way to find yourself is to take a risk, to believe that the present can be more beautiful than all our fears. Grayson, as if awakening from a long sleep, felt his soul fill with light. He slowly raised his hand, and their fingers intertwined, like two fates that finally decided to step over their own barriers. Every breath, every touch became a revelation, capable of breaking the chains of doubt. His eyes shone with inner struggle, but now a spark of faith in change was born in them. This night became a turning point, a moment when Grayson began to let go of the past, allowing new feelings to burst into his life. The intimate atmosphere created by Harper became not just a backdrop, but a powerful tool of transformation. Under the gentle rhythms of music, under the accompaniment of quiet confessions and bold glances, he realized that true freedom lies in the ability to love oneself as one is and to accept the challenge of change. Thus, in this magical evening, filled with passion, tenderness, and the thin line between dream and reality, Harper and Grayson took a step toward a new life. Their souls, like two sparks, ignited from mutual attraction, promising that every subsequent moment would be filled with meaning, warmth, and endless possibilities for sincere transformation. At dawn, when the first rays of the sun cautiously penetrated through the thin curtains, Grayson awoke, gripped by a strange mixture of feelings. The past night, filled with bold confessions and tender touches, left a deep mark on his soul, and every memory of it sounded like a soft call to change. Lying in the semi-darkness of his bedroom, he felt how his inner world began to slowly awaken, between a sense of guilt and sincere hope for the future, where new, unlimited choices were possible. In the corner of the room, Harper was already sitting quietly, as if observing his every movement. Her calm presence, enveloped in a soft smile, spoke of the fact that the past should not be forgotten, but should become the foundation for something new. She approached, and her words, filled with support and tenderness, as if a soft whisper of a new beginning, awakened in Grayson the courage to look deep within himself. Every new dawn is a chance to let go of the old and let light into your heart, she said softly, and her voice, as if enveloping with a warm blanket, penetrated into the most hidden corners of his mind. Grayson thought about his past obligations, about how the sense of duty to Sierra weighed on him, and at the same time, about how the fiery flame of change, ignited by last night, promised him freedom and the opportunity to be himself. In the morning silence, filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the soft rustle of the awakening city, they conducted a leisurely conversation. Words like light clouds floated between them, reflecting contradictory feelings. Recognition of past mistakes and fear of the unknown, awareness of loss, and at the same time the birth of something new. Grayson confessed that he felt responsibility for what had been, but that his heart was already drawn to the possibility of experiencing the present, sincerely without looking back at outdated dogmas and expectations. Harper listened to him, her gaze full of quiet wisdom and support. She knew that true freedom is born at the moment when a person accepts all his contradictions, both joys and pains, fears and dreams. Do not be afraid to be yourself, Grayson. Your doubts are a bridge to new heights, she said, and these words became a guiding star for him in the dark sky of change. In this morning light, where the past and the future merged into a single whole, Grayson felt that he was ready to make a choice that came from the depths of his soul. He understood that every second, every new dawn, was an opportunity to start over, to let go of old fears and take a step toward true love. Love for oneself, for life, for new sensations. And although the path forward was still unclear, at that moment he already knew. The present is decided not by fear, but by faith that every new day brings a chance to become better. Thus, in the morning silence filled with tenderness and promises of change, their destinies intertwined once more, promising that every new minute would be a step toward freedom and every dawn the start of a new, vibrant life story.